All right, today we're working with solving inequalities using multiplication and division. It does kind of build off of what we did yesterday with just using adding and subtracting. So think yesterday a lot of adding, subtracting to both sides, today probably a lot of multiplying and dividing. One of the biggest differences, one of the main rules that we have today is that if you multiply or divide by a negative, and many of you asked about this yesterday, you're saying, well, I know there's a situation where I have to like flip the direction of my inequality. I can't quite remember what that was. Here it is. It's if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the direction of your inequality. So like a less than would become a greater than less than. A greater than or equal to would be a less than or equal to, and a less than or equal to would switch to a greater than or equal to. So if you're the one that's writing in like, hey, I need to divide by -2 on both sides to solve this, or hey, I need to multiply by -5 on both sides to solve this, that's when you want to switch the direction of your inequality. So here we've got -3/7 x is less than 21. And right away we notice that the x is negative. So that's kind of a clue that, hey, this might be an idea where I need to switch the direction of my inequality. I know that if I want to get rid of a fraction as a coefficient, I want to take and multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of -3/7 is -7/3. If I do it to the left side, I want to make sure that I come over here and also do it to the right side, so times -7/3. So just started off multiplying each side by -7/3, the reciprocal of -3/7. I know over here that cancels the negatives and the 7s and the 3s, and I've got that x is now greater than, because I multiplied by a negative, and I need to figure out what 21/1 times -7/3 is. So I've got that x is greater than, I could do some cross canceling and make that a 7, make that a 1. It looks like it would be -49. Box that, there's my answer. Come over here to my number line, dealing with negatives, so I want my solution, -49, to be the middle number. Moving to the right means moving closer to 0. That would be a smaller negative, right? So -48. And then going more negative, like -50. It's a greater than, so that would be an open circle on -49, points to the right, so I shade to the right. So again, if you multiply or divide by a negative, like we were the ones that wrote in times -7/3 on both sides, that's the situation where you want to flip the direction of your inequality. All right, our next example, we've got -n/6 is less than or equal to 8. Lots of ways to think about this one. Maybe some of you would be like, okay, I'm going to multiply by 6 to start. Do that to both sides. Gets rid of my 6 as I have -n is still less than or equal to 48. Remember, at this stage, I haven't multiplied or divided by a negative, so there's no reason for me to flip the direction of my inequality, okay? I don't want -n, I want regular positive n, so I could divide everything by -1. Cancels the negative, now I've got n. I just divided by -1, right? I'm the one that wrote that in. I did that so I could solve the equation. So that is when I need to flip the direction of my inequality to a greater than or equal to, and -48 on the other side. Box that, that's my answer. A little practice or a little recall on set builder. Remember, that's your squiggly parenthesis. That means the set of all real numbers. Our variable is n. The criteria are such that n is greater than or equal to -48, and close up my set of numbers. So my variable is n, and as long as n is bigger than or equal to -48, that's a solution for me. All right, just another reminder, if you multiply or divide by a negative to solve, you have to flip the direction of your inequality symbol, okay? Every single time. Got to remember it. Big important rule. All right, so here's an equation, or an equation inequality, I should say. We've got 60t is greater than or equal to 8. I need to get t by itself, so I should divide by 60 on both sides. Divide by 60. I've got that t is greater than or equal to 8/60. I should always try to simplify fractions. Sorry, my stylus is not very good. So I see that the biggest thing I could divide each of those by would be 4, I believe. So t is greater than or equal to 8 divided by 4 is 2. 60 divided by 4 is 15. So I've got 2/15. If you notice, we kept the inequality the same all the way down. There was no reason for us to switch its direction. We never multiplied or divided by a negative. So we just worked with it as it was and simplified our fraction in the end. Solving and graphing. Sometimes fractions can be kind of tough to represent on a number line. If you put your value right in the middle, so here's our 2/15. We'll put maybe 3/15 to the right, and then our smaller value of 1/15 over to the left. So the greater than or equal to symbol would be closed on 2/15, my solution, and it points to the right, so I want to shade to the right. We don't stress with fractions, right? We can represent them pretty easy, 1, 2, 3, all over 15, and then still use your shading trick. If it points that way, I shade that way, as long as it's in this proper format where it's the variable, the inequality, and the number. All right, solve and graph. So first thing I need to do to get n by itself is to divide by -7. And right, I just said it right there, divide by negative. That's a red flag. Hey, I need to switch the direction of my inequality. I know it's going to be a negative because any positive divided by a negative is going to end up as a negative. 7 goes into 14 twice, and 7 goes into 7 one time. So it looks like 147 divided by -7 produces -21. So I've got my inequality flipped from dividing by a negative. There's my final answer. Come over here to my number line, -21 in the middle. Closer to 0, so -20 to the right of that, that's bigger. And then further away from 0, -22 over to the left. Closed dot on -21 because it's an or equal to. And then it points to the right, so I would want to shade to the right. Again, remember, multiply, divide by negative, have to flip that inequality. Solving graph here, so the variable switches over to the right side, no big deal. Still want to get r by itself, I should divide by 6. Come over here to the left side and do that as well. I've got right now that -7 is greater than r. Many of you might be sitting there thinking that I made a mistake. I did not, right? I'm the one that wrote in divide by 6. 6 is positive. There's no reason for me to switch the direction of my inequality if I divide by a positive, or if I multiply by a positive for that fact, okay? So because this 6 right here, right, that's a positive, there's no reason for me to switch the direction of my inequality. I realize I divided -42 by +6, and that's okay to do. I can divide negative numbers all day. It doesn't affect the sign. But if I divide by a negative, so if I would have divided by -6, that's where the direction of my inequality would have changed. This is a good answer. What I might do just to make my life a little bit easier is rewrite that so it's the variable r first. It needs to point towards r and open up towards -7. So I would probably shoot it that way, just to make sure that when I come over here to my graphing aspect of the answer, that I'm going to shade the right direction. So -7 in the middle, -6 closer to 0 to the right of that, -8 further away from 0 to the left of that. This time it's less than, so open. And I'm going to shade to the left this time. So again, we divided by regular +6, which is perfectly fine to do. There's no reason for me to switch the direction of my inequality. All right, solve and graph this last one. I've got another fractional coefficient, so it's -1/2. I know if I want to get rid of that, I can take the left side and the right side times the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of -1/2 would be -2 over 1. Come over here times -2. So 2's, negatives, 1's all cancel each other out. I've got that n. I multiplied by -2, right there. I just said it multiplied by negative. I'm the one that wrote in this part, so I need to flip the direction of my inequality. And then 6 times -2, pretty easy math fact, -12. So n is greater than or equal to -12. Plot those on my number line, -12 there, -11 there, -13 over there to the left. It's an or equal to, so closed on -12, points to the right, and I would want to make sure I shade that same direction to the right. So again, just to recap this rule right here, multiply or divide by negative, you have to change the direction. Don't be confused. I can take a negative number and divide it by positive, and my inequality would stay. It's only if I'm the one that's writing in that operation with the negative, right? I'm the one that wrote in divide by -7, therefore I need to switch that direction. And then also make sure that you go to that good form where it's your variable, your inequality, and your number. That way you're going to shade in the correct direction. Now that you hopefully understand the notes, you can go and get a copy of the 5.2 assignment from the front table. We will check both 5.1 and 5.2 tomorrow, so be ready to go with both of those. Thanks for following along. Best of luck. Email me if you have any questions.